Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Focus on Contentful course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Now, this is part two of a three-part series on GraphQL for content architects working inside of Contentful. In today's lesson, we're going to continue that journey learning GraphQL by introducing you to variables, fragments, aliases, and directives. And don't worry what all that means, because you will know in just a couple of seconds. So let's just jump right in. Let me go ahead and show my screen here. So here we go. And you know what? I'm going to take a little sip of water here, just to make sure my voice isn't all dry. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we have in Contentful here. Here we have Contentful, and we have a content model in there, so I'm just rearranging some things here. I want to make sure I cover everything for you today that I want to cover. So here's the content types that I have in Contentful. Real quick, just so you have a big picture overview, because as a content architect, you're going to be working with Miro, then you're going to go into Contentful, then you're going to go and query these through GraphQL, right? That's the process that we talked about in at the beginning of part one of this series. But in this one, we have a author content type, we have a blog content type, and how-to article content type, a tag and category content type, right? And the blog has reference to an author. The blog is a one-to-one, meaning you can only have one entry, one author. But the article the blog has one-to-many, and the article has one-to-one, right? So you can only have one author in the how-to article and many authors in the blog article. Then you have related articles, which have references to both the how-to article in blog and also to blog itself. So you can relate to other articles, and same with how-to article, right? They're related to itself and to blog. And then you're able to give it tags and categories. And you're probably wondering, well, why did you mix that up? Why don't you have two separate fields? I did that on purpose because I want to show you something within GraphQL that you can do, how you can separate this. But that's why I put it together. Normally I wouldn't. I would have a tags field and a categories field. But these both reference tag and category, tags and category, right? And then the author just has a name, bio, and a photo. So the content model is in there, and obviously we have already how-to articles, we have some blog articles in there, we have some entries of author, so on and so forth. So everything is in there because, you know, today's focus is on GraphQL and how to use it within Contentful. Now, to give you a quick recap, you're going to have to if you want to know how to set up GraphQL and get it going within Contentful, watch part one of this. A series, which is on the Focus on Contentful course. Just go watch that, and I show you how to do that. But today we're going to do a very quick recap of how to query GraphQL, the stuff we learned in lesson one. So the first thing we learned is querying, doing a single query. So in this case, we're going to query a category, right? We have category here. We're going to query a category. And we got the ID, the particular ID of a category, which you can get if you go to an entry in Contentful, go to info, you can get the ID. So here we're querying this category and it's returning food, right? We said, hey, give me this one entry for category content type, return the name, and based on this. This is the argument, right? ID. All right, so the next thing we learned is how do we query a collection, right? So in this case, we're saying, hey, give me all of the categories. And what I want is the name. So if I click on run here, I get every single category. So you can see here, if we go back to content, and I'm going through this rather quickly because this is a recap of part one. I don't want to go through all the details. To get to the details, go watch part one. But you can see here are all the entries for a category, okay? Then we learned, okay, how do we query a reference? In other words, how do we get, for example, if we go back to our content model, for a blog article or a how-to article, how do we get the author that's in there? Because it's a reference field. So in this case, we're going to the how-to article collection, and we're saying, give me the title, and also give me the author field. And what I want, because it's going to reference an entry in author, I want the full name and the photo of that author. So if I click on run, or run, you can see right here, it gives me the first entry, which is how to install car battery, and the author is John Doe, and here's the photo and the URL to the photo. Same with this one, how to make a super cheap pizza. Yeah, these are incredible blog article entries, or how-to entries, aren't they? And of course, they're all made up by me here. But the author is me, Marcelo, because I love pizza. And then here's a URL to it. All right, so that's how you query a reference. And then the other one was, how do you query multiple references? For example, in the blog collection, if we go back to blog collection, let's go back here for a second. And we're querying articles collection. So if we go back to blog here, you can see that we have related articles, but related articles has the ability to tag or reference not only how-to article right here, but also a blog article itself. So what happens when you run a query like this? It'll return multiple types, and of course it's going to return an error. Why does it return an error? Let's see. I know why, because I changed this before. Wait, it's not a JSON anymore. Let's fix this up here. So for my notes, we're good there. Okay, we'll run it again. There we go. All right, so you can see that what it's returning here for this collection, it's returning the title. Like we said, we want the title. And then for related collection items, it's returning 2 items. Let's close that up. And let's see. Oh, in this case, I believe it may be return. No, it is returning 2 items. Yep. Okay, so we have here blog item. It's this one. I don't know why it's not closing. Oh, there we go. It's returning. This one doesn't actually want to close it. Usually it would close it. Anyway, here's the how-to article. And here, if we open this one, is of type blog. And the only way to do that when you're referencing multiple content types is you have to use the on keyword and then check for what type of content type is returning, and then you can return the appropriate fields. So again, this is a quick recap of the last lesson. Go to that for the full details on how to do that. So now that we have this as our basis, now let's jump in and let's start with aliases. Okay, so what are aliases? Aliases allow you to provide alternative names or aliases for query results. So let's look at what I mean by this. So let me type in this. Let's refresh so we can clear the screen there. Okay, so we have a query named aliases, and we're going to query how-to article. We're going to get the specific article ID. We want to get the title, and we're going to get an author with the full name, and then we're going to get, remember we have the tags and categories collection, which returns both tags and categories together. So if we run this, you see that we have author, me, the title, and then we have here items that says tag, the 2 tags and 1 category. But let's do this. Let's say we don't want it returned as author. We want this returned as, call it a writer. Very easy. In aliases, what you can do with fields is you can say, hey, I want this field to be known as writer. So it's the alias name colon and then the actual field. So now if I run this, you see that now it's called writer. So the return in your code, you would go after it and get it as writer if you wanted to do that. That's one example. Where this becomes really important is when you're pulling, let's say, for example, authors that are in multiple locales. So you may say, hey, give me the author in the locale of Spanish, and I want the author in the locale of English, so you can separate them. That's another reason to use that, and we're going to do that in part 3 of this lesson. So that's one example. Another example here, we have tags and categories, right? And it's returning everything into one query. But let's say we want to have tags and categories collection returned only the tags in one and only the categories in the other. So we could do this. We're going to copy this. We're going to paste it. And now we have it twice. And this is going to confuse the query because if we run this, it's still going to return the same thing. It doesn't know what you want. But what we're going to do is we're going to in this case, what we're going to do here is we're going to say this one will be categories. So we're only going to look for category. And in this one, we're only going to look for tags. And we're going to give it an alias. So we're going to say tags, colon, We're calling this one tags, and we're calling this one, or I'm sorry, this one is return categories. So now, categories, that's the name that we want to give it. That's the alias name. And here we're going to give it tags as the alias. So now when we run this, there you go. Now, from the code perspective, now you have the ability to say, hey, what are the categories? And it'll return an array of objects, and you can just look for the ones that have the objects. So here we have one category named food. Here we have two tags named pizza and red and empty here, so we would ignore that.